not your traditional combine that you see everywhere rolling through the fields. Give us an idea of what this is and why you're running it.
Yeah, this is a mid-70s vintage combine, and most of the times when you see wheat combined in the South Dakota or the Great Plains, it's a machine somebody's driving and not being pulled by a tractor. So this is some of the older combines were pulled by a tractor, and they're somewhat simpler. You don't have the engine and everything. So, and it just worked. It came with a book. I had never run a combine, and I just set all the settings according to wheat. There are about 5 different adjustments, and it just worked. And it's simplicity itself. There are almost no electronics.
A little bit different process. So instead of cutting it and bringing it into the machine all at the same time, you have to come out here and swath it just like you would a hay field, and then let it lay for a while and dry, make sure everything's dried out, and then you come by basically like you're baling it, picks it up into there, threshes it, separates the grain, and then spits all the rest out the back.
The good thing about that process is when you cut the wheat, cut whatever's growing out here, and then let it sit for a week or 10 days, the weeds can dry down. And this was probably the wettest year we've seen in 20 years, and so the weeds really took off, and basically you had to let the weeds sit, or they were still green. They would just plug it up all the time. It just wouldn't go through. So in organic farming, it's kind of a plus. A lot of years we don't have that much weed pressure. If you get a good stand of wheat in a normal year, it's growing in May and June, and it gets out ahead of the weeds, and then our moisture stops, and you have a good stand of wheat. But this year, it just didn't work.
There's a lot of chains, belts, and pulleys here. I mean, it's maybe not as simple to some people as you made it sound.
Yeah, it's
a lot of moving parts.
And evolution, I guess the first threshing machines were built 100 years ago, and this is just an advancement. But it's a lot of moving parts. And basically, this header picks it up, and behind this big wheel is a cylinder with rough bars on it, and that goes up against what's called a concave. That's a slotted steel panel, basically, and scrapes. It's kind of like taking a head of wheat and rubbing it in your hands, really, but the cylinder and the concave are doing that, and it just pulls it through. And then there's kind of a series of screens there where the wheat drops out and then is brought up into the tank.
So the wheat, being heavier and smaller, falls through more screens through the holes, separates out, and eventually ends up more towards the bottom, gets augered up into a container up towards the top, and the rest of that stuff just kind of floats up and then gets belted out the back, right?
That's it. Since being an organic operation, we don't fertilize, so whatever nutrient values in this crop residue is useful.
So you don't bale that up generally?
Yeah, some we do, but not very much. Typically we'll leave it off.
All right. See some grain. Oh yeah, it looks pretty clean. Yeah, because those big pieces can get separated out pretty easily, right? You know, with your grain cleaning, you'll get that out of there without much problem.
Yeah, in my case, I don't care because I'm cleaning it, and I can clean it out, and it goes for chicken feed.
Does this do a pretty good job of efficiency-wise?
Yeah,
picking it up?
It does pretty good. Yeah, I think it's as good as any. So these were harvested a few weeks ago. So I went ahead and had a guy come in with a no-till drill and plant that, and I think it's coming up. And,
Oh, we should probably take a look at that.
and I think it's coming along. Alfalfa is extremely hard to kill. This was a hayfield, alfalfa hayfield 2 years ago. So I can't use Roundup to kill the alfalfa, so we just plow it. And alfalfa is really hard to kill. So that's a product of not inefficient plowing or incomplete plowing, but it's okay because
that helped put some nitrogen back in the
keeps
soil
putting
too,
nitrogen.
right?
We'll have alfalfa seed in the grain bin also. We'll clean that out so I don't have to buy alfalfa seed anymore. So
you can separate that.
you can separate that pretty easily. So that's the new stuff.
It's the new stuff coming up right here in this. Yep.
It's ready to go. It's got a root system. And
Do you ever graze any of this?
I haven't for a few years. Our neighbors used to run sheep, and we may graze it again in the future.
Excellent. Well, that's cool to see that next crop already. We're in the field,
Start
10 feet away from harvest. Yet next year's is already seed sown and it's growing. It looks good. As long as we don't get 20 below zero with no snow cover for 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
A lot of farmers realize that, but that snow cover is just really good insulation.
Good insulation. Yeah.
So
it'll
it's
help
really
it survive.
helpful.
Yeah. When you combine them or harvest them, the combine, the threshing machine doesn't peel the hull off, so I have to dehull it. So that's why they end up costing more and there's more waste.
I see. So
waste,
with the more modern varieties, as that goes through a combine, it comes out looking like grain.
Yeah.
But these ancient ones, that hull is on there a little.
On there, yeah.
It's really on there.
Yeah.
And so that has to go through a whole other process in your other shed there.
In the 1950s, this is the best grain cleaner you could get. As it comes out of the combine, out of the harvester, it's got chaff and stems and so on in it. So you've got to get it to basically clean wheat, but it's a good old machine. It's good for people that are maybe a little sensitive to gluten, and it's got a nice flavor. White Sonora is a soft white. That's said to be the first white wheat in North America, hundreds of years old. And some of the others are newer. This is a 1970 vintage hard white. Modern hard red wheat with higher protein. And but that's kind of the evolution of the ones we offer. And you can see the difference in the heads, the einkorn versus spelt, and more red fife's kind of halfway modern. But
yeah, I mean,
this totally looks like a different plant.
Those are in those holes.
Right.
Whereas this, you can probably grab that, go like that, and it falls apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were here the last time, we looked at 3 types of winter wheat, spelt, Clark's cream, and red fife. And 2 of them made it. The red fife didn't as a winter wheat. And so I replanted it as a spring wheat. And we had some severe, we had 4 days of minus 40 wind chill in
early
December.
Early in the winter without much snow.
No snow cover.
Just too dang cold for that stuff to survive.
This mill has 20-inch stones. In other words, the diameter of the stones is 20 inches, and they upgraded to one with 48-inch stones. So we were able to purchase this from Moxie, and it means a lot to Linda and I, and it's like new, and you can still get parts. Other than bearings, if the bearings go out, you cannot order new bearings. They are Babbitt bearings, what's called a Babbitt bearing. So If those bearings go out, you have to watch YouTube and figure out how to melt liquid metal and pour a new bearing. You actually have to pour the bearings, or find an old-time machinist.
I was gonna say, and I'm sure you can probably get them custom made somehow.
Somewhere somebody would know how to do that.
Somebody can make bearings, but not as easy as just running to the hardware store and grabbing bearings.
No, not off the shelf.
One of the things that I remember from last time we were here talking about milling is trying to control the heat.
Right.
And is that the stone milling? How does that affect the heat that goes into that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And if you look on the internet, one of the things you find is that stone milling is preferred because the grain, what you read is that the grain doesn't get heated up as much as it's ground between the stones. That's sort of true, but you can't believe everything you read there on the internet. And when Moxie bred, when they were using this, on a warm summer day, by the afternoon, the flour coming out was 120 degrees, and it would start kind of mushing the grain, and they had to shut down. Mm-hmm. So however you're milling grain, it creates heat. You know, I don't know about the heat aspect, but the flour is definitely different. As we'll look at, it has more. It's more like it shears the grain apart, and you can see the flakes of bran in there, and whereas the impact mills just kind of demolish everything. So it's a little bit different. Everything they made was kind of simple, but worked.
Right.
You can see in here actually the stones. The one on the left here is called the bedding stone that's stationary, and then the one on the right, you can see it moving.
Well, I think the only thing really to do then is kind of watch this thing go a little bit and see how it works. Right about the same time my grandpa was born.
Yeah.
When that was made.
Yeah.
So, pretty cool. I'm assuming you can put quite a bit of wheat in there and
go have a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Got enough flour to make some bread.
Yeah, we could see about that.
So when we bake bread, we use this recipe, and it's enriched bread. You can bake bread with basically flour, salt, water, and yeast or sourdough, but we add to ours an egg, some butter, a little sugar.
Yeah. Lighten it up and a little flavor.
Yep, give it a little flavor, make it a little sweet.
But still less than a half a page simple little recipe here.
Oh, it's
not rocket science.
If I can bake bread, believe me, anybody can bake bread. So the first thing you do is you take some water and milk and you warm it up a little bit and then add the yeast and wait for it to start to bubble. We use 1 3/4 cup of water and milk mixed half and half. 4 teaspoons of yeast. And then you just have to wait a little bit, maybe 15 minutes, sometimes 20, until that starts to bubble.
Let that rest and
Yeah,
bubble a
let
little
the
bit.
yeast get activated, yep. I use
Sure.
some bread flour along with the ancient grain flour. What we realized is that it's really important to weigh your flour in grams, because a cup of flour
Whether
of
it's
one
sifted,
kind,
it's fluffier, or more dense. and-
right, and we can take 2 pounds of grain and mill it, and it will, some of the varieties will, you know, fluff up this big,
Sure.
and some of them will fluff up this big. So it really shows you how
So
important it is
A weight
to.
is way more accurate than a volume.
Weight is more important, yep.
So do you have a certain ratio of kind of the modern bread flour to?
I use half and half usually. Sometimes though, there's a cookbook called Heritage Baking that is really excellent for baking with ancient grains. And really the only reason I use some bread flour is because it gives it the rise. Ancient grain flour tends to not, your bread doesn't rise
So it's a
quite
little more
as much.
dense. and- yeah.
Yeah. But you still get the flavor, even if you mix it half and half,
Yep.
you still get the flavor. And I just really can't say it enough. I am not an excellent baker by any means. I'm not probably even a good baker, but anybody can bake bread. It really isn't very difficult. It doesn't take very long. Now all we have to add is butter and eggs when it's time. Oh, and the sugar. We don't want to forget
Now
that.
don't forget the sugar.
Don't forget the
Yeah.
sugar.
You need a little sweetening up.
Okay, I'm going to add the butter and the egg. That's it. That's pretty much all you do.
Pretty much it. Let it rise, let it bake.
Guess first.
All right, you don't have to tell me twice. That's so good. There's just so much to it. Mm-hmm. Light and fluffy, but yet full of flavor.
Has flavor.
Yeah, if people have not tried baking bread with some of these ancient grains and this ancient flour, and you just have to.
Well,
You're
and
missing out on one of life's finer things as far as I'm concerned.
And it's so easy. It really is easy. It takes less than 30 minutes. You can have your bread in the oven, and 15, 20 minutes later, take it out, and you've got bread for the week.
So before I forget to kind of promo you guys a little bit, people can order either the wheat or the flour online, right? So tell them how they can do that.
Well, we have a website, Belle Valley Ancient Grains, and you can go to the website and order the grain or the flour, and we can ship it to you. If you order, I'm not sure what the cutoff is, but there's a certain amount, then your shipping is free. Or if you live locally, I come to Rapid City at least once a week. We're in Belle and Spearfish in the Northern Hills, so we can deliver it too.
This is out of the red fife, which sounds like you guys like a lot.
We do.
Is there one that's more popular than others, or seems like there's a lot of several different varieties out there? What would you recommend people to try to start with?
Well, we do a combination. We call it baking blend 2, which is half red fife and half Clark's cream, a combination. And a lot of people like that. You get some of the baking qualities of a white flour, still not like store-bought flour. It won't rise like, store-bought flour bread would, but you get the flavor of the red fife, but you get a little bit better baking quality.
I'd love to have some bread from somebody that's great at baking.
You should.
Because this is amazing. This is awesome.
You should eat some of this bread made by somebody who's really good at baking, and I
don't know how it could
it
get
only
much
goes
better.
up from here.
Yeah, it's pretty dang good.
When I bake bread with Ancient Grains, I think of my grandma, the passing down of your knowledge and your history. She baked every morning, and it just it gives you a connection to people.